Greetings, fellow Earthlings! With the COVID-19 pandemic winding down, we still are looking forward to being able to meet in person inside our amazing Zeiss Planetarium at the Chabot Space and Science Center. We will be open to the public in 6 months from now, November 2021. Until then, we can always use Nature's Planetarium, also known as the real sky, to step outside, tilt our heads back, and see at least some of the amazing things I'll be pointing out for you tonight. I am, of course, talking about the constellations. There are people, animals, and objects up in the night sky. They've been there for millennia, but most people are unaware of them as they glide by unnoticed, right over our heads every clear night. Tonight, let us explore these objects and characters and let them become our friends and familiars, just as the ancients did. To start, let's consider the reason we don't see all the constellations at once. The Earth has 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. Well, the constellations also have seasons, having to do with the Earth's yearly orbital path around the Sun. I want you to think about that for a moment. The constellations have seasons too. Just realizing this fully can help make knowing the constellations easier. We can only see stars by looking away from the Sun at night, which changes our view of the stars as the Earth makes its orbit around the Sun throughout the year. Unfortunately, unless you're at a good dark sky site, and if the moon isn't too bright, most constellations will be somewhat hard to see fully. But most constellations have at least a few bright stars to help identify them, and the better your viewing location, the more you'll be able to see. A good first step to finding the constellations is done by knowing your compass directions. We can easily do this without a compass using a star grouping that is quite easy to see and most everyone knows: the Big Dipper. If you don't know the Big Dipper, have someone who does know it point it out to you. Around this time of the year, the Dipper is kind of sideways, but is still easy to see with its curving handle and bowl. Take special note of the 2 stars at the end of the bowl. These are called the pointers, because if you take the distance between them and extend that distance out about 5 times their length, they point to this semi-bright star here. Now, Polaris is the only star in the entire sky that stays pretty much right where it is, so no matter what time of night it is, or even what month of the year it is, all you need to do is face it, and you'll always be facing due north, with east directly to your right, west directly to your left, and south directly behind you. All the other stars wheel around this pivot point anti-clockwise, making them appear to rise in the east and set in the west. This is, of course, an illusion caused by the Earth's rotation, which gives the appearance that the stars are moving, when in fact it is the Earth that's spinning. If you think of the Earth as a spinning top, and you extend Earth's north polar axis straight up into the sky, it points almost directly at Polaris. Using Polaris, we found all the compass directions, but Polaris is also the end of the Little Dipper's handle, whose official name is Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, a small constellation. It's a bit faint, but from Polaris, you might be able to trace its curving handle to its bowl. The 2 brighter stars at the end of its bowl are called the Guardians, because they seem to march around the North Star like protective sentries throughout the night. Starting between the bowls of the Big and Little Dippers, arcing up and over the Little Dipper, we find the tail of Draco the Dragon. He's also got feet, a short belly, and a long neck and squarish head. There be dragons up there. I'll bet you didn't know that, but now you do. Now, you probably didn't notice that I called the Little Dipper, also known as Ursa Minor, the Little Bear, a constellation, while earlier I called the Big Dipper a star grouping. Isn't the Big Dipper a constellation too? Nope. The Big Dipper is what we astronomers call an asterism, which is different from an actual constellation. The Big Dipper is only part of the constellation Ursa Major, the Big Bear, as seen here. He's totally upside down from this view, but here's what he looks like right side up. As you can see, the end of the so-called Big Dipper's handle is his nose. The Dipper's curving handle is the back of his neck, and the Dipper's bowl is like a saddle on the bear's back. Got it? Good. To continue, let's turn our view to the south like so. This will flip everything we've seen so far upside down, or right side up depending on how you look at it, and will enable us to find the rest of the night's major constellations more easily. We can use the Big Dipper's handle to find two other constellations, Boötes the herdsman and Virgo the virgin. All you have to do is follow the arc of the Big Dipper's handle until you reach the bright star Arcturus, which is in the lap of Boötes. If you saw his name spelled out, you'd want to pronounce it Booties, but it's Boötes. He's got a big head, a cap, a body in a sitting position with a leg and foot, and his pipe. A simple shepherd smoking his pipe while watching over his flock. And to find the next constellation, just continue that arc in order to speed on to Spica, which happens to be part of Virgo, the Virgin. So follow the arc to Arcturus, and then speed on to Spica. How nice. Virgo is our first zodiacal constellation for June. There are several other zodiacal constellations up at this time of the year, but they're so faint I'm afraid pointing them out would be wasted effort, so I won't. Most of Virgo's stars are pretty faint, and her overall shape is pretty rough as an approximation of a woman lying down, but she has a head, one arm pointing up, a body, two legs, and of course her shiny rump star, which is Spica. Arcing above the southern horizon is a kind of invisible line where all the zodiacal constellations can be found. This line is called the ecliptic, and is also where the sun, moon, and planets move along. This is why the zodiacal constellations were so significant to astrologers. Not that astronomy scientists believe in the pseudoscience of astrology, most don't, but astrologers were some of history's first astronomers, and for their early work we are in their debt. To the right or west of Virgo, we have our other worthy zodiacal constellation, Leo the Lion. He's got a head, neck with mane, body, legs, and tail. Located in his front foot, Leo's brightest star is called Regulus, which is the 22nd brightest star in the sky. He's heading toward the west, and by next month will be pretty much impossible to see, so see him while you can, before he's lost to the sun's glare. Going back to Boötes, the herdsman, just behind his head is a pretty little constellation, Corona Borealis, the northern crown, with a semi-bright jewel in the middle, Gemma. Using the tips of the northern crown as pointers, we find the keystone of Hercules, an asterism that is his head, with the rest of his body, limbs, and club seen thusly. Trailing behind Hercules, we see Lyra, the lyre, which is a small Greek harp and not someone who tells untruths. It contains one of the brightest stars in the sky, Vega, the first star to show of the asterism, the summer triangle, which we will see in the early evening of next month. Or, if you can't wait, stay up until around midnight and the Earth will roll enough for you to see it now. And that's it. There are other smaller or fainter constellations out there which I encourage you to look for using a good book and maybe a pair of binoculars too. Speaking of good books, I cannot more highly recommend the book The Stars, A New Way to See Them by the author H.A. Rey, who you may know as the same author who wrote the Curious George books. Rey was a scientist who wasn't satisfied with the way modern star charts were drawn. The astroscientists were not interested in the characters, objects, or stories behind the constellations, so for convenience they just connected the brighter stars into weird geometric shapes, slapped on their Greek names, many of which would mean nothing to the common person, and left it at that. That's all fine and well for them, but for us regular folk, we're more interested in the fun stuff. If you really want to learn the constellations, get Rey's book, which can be purchased from Amazon.com for about $18. I'd also recommend getting a pair of binoculars before getting a telescope. Binoculars are cheaper and easier to use, and there are many wonderful deep sky objects that can actually be best seen with just a pair of binoculars that are noted in Rey's book. If you do want to get a telescope, ask us or research on the web how to make an informed purchase. Be warned, there are a lot of bad telescopes out there with cheap components and shaky, muddy, fuzzy views that will disappoint you every time. A good scope will inspire you and your children to a lifetime of deep space exploration and an appreciation of science and nature in general. If you're interested in getting into the hobby of astronomy, joining a local astronomy club can be most helpful. Chabot is partnered with the EAS, the East Bay Astronomical Society, which has many activities and resources you'll find essential to help you get started in this amazing and beautiful study of our natural universe. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this content, be sure to click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell notification icon to find out when new content has been uploaded. This will really help our channel to grow, which would make us all very happy. And until we meet again, we'll see you in the future!